We will basically conduct this in English, but you're more than welcome when we have the discussions or when you want to make comments to do that in Afrikaans if need to be. So let's then get going with the report back on my and Bobbie's visit to ICAR 2023 that took place in Toledo in Spain. So good. I think as a start, I think it's important that we just get going about what ICAR is. Like I said, some of the slides will be in Afrikaans, some in English. So you're more than welcome, like I said, if you have any suggestions or discussion later on, that you can use Afrikaans as well. So the question always arises from many people ask me, but why this relationship between SA Stadboek, which serves as a registering authority, and that's an association of breeder societies, with the International Committee for Animal Recording. So ICAR is an international body. The first very important reason why we are involved with ICAR is the fact that it's the only international body that can accredit and certify recording systems, the calculations, the genetic evaluations, and according to the Local Animal Improvement Act, Diereverbeteringswet in South Africa, any registering authority such as Stadboek need to comply with international standards. So ICAR is basically the only body in the world that can do that, and you need to be a member of ICAR to enable you to apply for international certification. So it's important for us then to have the certificate of quality seal of ICAR in terms of what we do, what our system is all about, and or even the technical on the technical field and the genetic evaluations of what we do. So that's I think reason enough to be part of ICAR internationally. Then I think that's very important as a scientist and a scientist working and on the technical level and on the latest in terms of technology. We need to say what's happening in the world in terms of practices that deal with recording practices and technological development. Obviously, we want to be at the forefront of what's happening in the rest of the world and what the scientific developments are. And we would like to know what the scientists are working on and what the latest tendencies are for on an international level. So I just think if you don't do that and you don't cross-pollinate internationally, you're getting behind with these, and it's very important for us at Stadboek to enable us to be at the forefront of the latest developments. And then very important, obviously, because we deal with data of animals being recorded and the traits of economic importance, it's very important for us to know exactly what's happening in terms of genetic evaluation and also take part of what ICAR is doing in terms of its subcommittees. The main subcommittee that we're talking about is Interboel, that's involved with the international genetic evaluation of dairy cattle. We've been part of that for many years. That enables us to express the genetic merit of international bulls on the South African scale. So you have, let's say, a milk producer in South Africa, a Jersey producer in South Africa, and he wants to consider using a bull that's been bred elsewhere in the world as the semen. What will that bull's progeny do locally in a South African situation where he's producing his milk and where he gets paid for his product locally? So that's a very important reason why we need to be part of this international body and take part in its subcommittees and working groups. And then I think something that's very important from a scientific perspective is that this ICAR is possibly the biggest network in the world of animal scientists, and all related sciences that underpins animal science. So we're talking about microbiologists, we're talking about lab experts, we're talking about physiologists, and the like. So ICAR gives us opportunity to rub shoulders with these people at international level and enable us to broaden our horizons and also to incorporate that in the products and services that we render for the breeders that make use of the services of Studbook. And then another very important aspect is that there are a lot of international companies and organizations dealing with the animal recording and the improvement of animal production, the productivity of animal production, and even product quality. And those companies are either or usually associate members of ICAR, and they are part of the ICAR family. And that to us is also very important, because obviously we do business with these companies, and we also know that if these companies are part of ICAR, you can trust the products of these companies and also the services that they render. So in that regards, it's also extremely important to be part of ICAR. Bobbie, I don't know if you want to add something on this, on why it was I think your first experience, or maybe your second experience of being part of an ICAR meeting. But I don't know if you want to elaborate on this, or just a little bit about the background of why we need to be part of the ICAR family globally.
No, I think everything that has been said. The main reasons why we are part of ICAR, or the ICAR certification, is important. I think you have explained it very good. Thanks.
Okay. Just then to get to the meeting that we attended, it took place from the 21st to the 26th of May of this year in Toledo in Spain. So it was the first time ICAR took place in Spain. I was privileged the end of 2020 to I'm also one of the auditors in ICAR, and I had the privilege to also visit Spain at the time, at the end of 2020, 2020, to do the accreditation of 5 beef cattle breed societies, but I'll talk a little bit about that later. The main sponsor of the event this year was the Royal Spanish Federation of Purebred Livestock Associations. It's more the indigenous breeds, and it's not just cattle, but it's all species. The meeting was attended by 370 delegates from 37 countries. So it just tells you it's really a global organization, and there were more than 100 scientific papers read at this meeting. So obviously it's impossible to attend all this because you have concurrent sessions, you have plenary sessions where everybody attend, but you also have concurrent sessions, and it also then makes sense that more than one persons from Studbook attended, so that we could split our resources to attend some of these sessions that ran concurrently. We were also privileged from our perspective to also, I was invited for one paper. It was on my auditing of the 5 Spanish beef cattle breeders associations at the end of 2020, and I had to give a report back on that to in one of the sessions, specifically on international certification, and that was the invited paper. And then Bobbie had a scientific paper, and I think this is very important, on the application of genomic selection in South Africa. So he reported back at ICAR where we currently are in terms of how we incorporate genomic information in our prediction of genetic merit of animals in South Africa. So I think you are well aware, maybe some of you are aware of the fact that we do that for quite a number of beef cattle breeds already. We do it for 3 dairy breed groups, and we also do it for the merino sheep. And just by chance, for those who don't know that, the merino's origins are from Spain. So I think, so we had a lot of interest for the fact that we also do genomic breeding value predictions for the merino breed. And then I also thought it appropriate to just report back on where we are with livestock recording and improvement in South Africa, and what the challenges and major drivers are for livestock improvement, recording and improvement in South Africa. So those were the contributions from Studbook side. So it wasn't just a free ride. We had to work to be able to attend, and I think this is also important in terms of getting the message out of what we are doing at Studbook on an international level. So that was then our contribution towards that. I don't know, Bobbie, you had some interest, I think, especially when you what we call the gene plot, where we have the genetic distances amongst the different breeds in South Africa. I think you had some interest there, and also questions about that. I don't know if you want to elaborate something about that, what your experience was with the paper that you read.
Yeah, there was a good attendance, and when you look at the genetic distance within and between the various breeds on the genomic level, there is always a lot of interest in that. So there was a couple of questions, and that was very positive.
Okay, thanks. I then would like to start talking about what we perceive to be of great value attending this. So I'm going to do a little bit of name dropping here and there of some of the people we talk to, people I've been in contact for many years and know very well, international scientists or people involved with animal recording and improvement. And this is basically in a random order, I think, as things happen. So the first person I would like to mention is Gerben de Jong. He's working for CRB in the Netherlands. Now, CRB is basically originally the company when we started off way back in 2000 in Studbook, and the ARC at the time, with the development of IRIS, the system we use for recording and calculations of lactation curves and so forth. We worked very closely together with them at the time. They were then called NRS, and subsequently they changed their name to CRB. And I think a lot of you would be familiar with CRB. They are also distributing semen worldwide, especially for dairy cattle. But they also have a core of scientists, animal geneticists, and Gerben is leading that group in the Netherlands that's doing the genetic evaluation for dairy cattle, mainly for dairy cattle. So what's important for us at Studbook is we are moving away from the original IRIS because we've moved way beyond those original source code and the computer systems we used to have. We have more modern rate computers, and we're currently working on the lactation curves for dairy. And he has promised us the source code for the way that they calculate the lactation curves. It's those who are familiar with dairy cattle would know that lactation curves are dependent on a lot of environmental influences, the level of feeding, the age of the animal, and so forth. So I think this is a very important move for us to enable us to move over to newer systems. And then very important too, the Dutch has been at the calculation of genetic method for milk, urea, and nitrogen for quite a while. And we talked about that and the value of that in terms of environmental impact, and also maybe the energy balance and so forth in dairy cattle. And that will, I think, unlock some new information for dairy evaluations in South Africa through Statboek. And then an interesting discussion was also the relationship with age at first calving of dairy cattle and the correlation it has on total lifetime production for those animals. So I think this can also unlock new possibilities in terms of research and development for us at Statboek to see how we can maybe incorporate that in our selection index or the total economic index for dairy cattle. Then a very important person for us that we have been dealing with for quite a long time is Romy. Romy is working for Weatherbeast, the laboratory, the genetic laboratory in Dublin, in Ireland. And they are basically also doing the genomic evaluation for the ICBF, the Irish Cattle Breeders Federation. Now the ICBF, just to put you into perspective, we're battling to do a few thousand genomic tests a year for cattle. The Irish are doing something between 300,000 and 1 million animals per year, and they only have 3 million cattle in their country. So it just gives you an idea on the mind shift in Ireland in terms of moving over to genomic evaluation. So obviously, when you talk to somebody that's a service provider, the first thing you do is try and negotiate price. So that was one of the reasons we talked to her. And then currently, when we still do a genomic evaluation or send the hair of samples to Ireland, is to get whether the animal is a carrier for A2 milk, the dairy animal, and we currently have to pay royalties, try to negotiate to get that royalties waived as well. And then there's a renewed interest in genomic evaluation for companion animals, namely horses and dogs. We are awaiting for a quotation to enable us to also do genomic evaluation for these. Bobbie, before I go to the next slide, I don't know if you have anything to add to what I've said about these two people that we interacted with.
I think both of them was very important, especially the second point, where in South Africa it is a challenge for pricing of genomic tests. So Statboek are continuously looking for means to drive the cost down, to get the service rendered to our farmers at a better price. So that's very important to us, and then also to make sure that we stay in front in terms of modeling for especially in the dairy, where we have lactation curves and lactation yields that we need to estimate the whole time, and it is important for us to stay with the trends that is out there.
I've lost sound. I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Have you finished? So
Yes.
That's good. Okay. Okay, then the next one is, and this is a very important one for us. Currently, we have extended this genomic services also to include small stock, especially sheep. I've mentioned the merino genomic evaluations that we currently doing, and we would like to extend that to other breeds as well. So two of the competitors on the market for ear tags would be Casely and Allflex, Casely is a German firm, and Allplex is a US. What we would like to, Casely has entered the South African market, and I think that that's a very, that ICAR runs an accreditation for ear tags globally, and you only basically buy trustworthy ear tags if they are ICAR accredited. Then you know the writing of the ear tag will last, that UV will not damage the ear tag, and so forth, and it's tamper free. Just suggestion to farmers to first check whether those buying are really ICAR accredited. You can go onto the ICAR website to check that. What's important is that that you can send to the laboratory for genomic evaluation. With cattle, it's fairly you pluck the tail hair, and that with the hair roots you get enough extra DNA, and it enables you to on that. But with sheep, especially wool sheep, it's very difficult because you can't get biological big enough biological sample to enable you to extract the DNA, and so you must else some other biological sample. So both these manufacturers have products that when you put a tag in, it actually pushes a little bit of cartilage from the ear into a tube with a preservative, and that tube sent to the lab where they then use a piece of cartilage to extract the DNA to enable you to do a genomic test. The difference is that the Casely one, you can, especially when you put it in a freezer at -12 degrees centigrade, you can store it indefinitely. And that meant that we, in the meantime, when Bobbie and I got back, we had a Zoom discussion with Casely, and we also got a quote for applicators, and also these tags that will enable us to distribute that amongst the small stock breeders in South Africa who are or wanting to do genomic tests of their sheep and their rams and so forth, and we will then be able to store sample at Stadboek until such time as they see fit to get their samples tested at the genomic lab. So that I think has been a very important part of our trip, has been to talk to companies, but in the end we will probably stick with the Casely choice, and also we will buy applicators, and some of the ear tags that we can then supply to those farmers that are doing genomic tests on their sheep or small stock. It can be good. Bobbie, I don't know if I've left something out, but you're more than welcome to maybe add if you like to.
I will add when I think there is something.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's it. Good. In our good friends, the ICBF. ICBF is the Irish Cattle Breeders Federation. We have a very, very long history working together with ICBF since prior to 2000. We, like I said, they've put out new tenders for their genomic evaluation. So they put tenders out to the manufacturers of the so-called SNP chip, and then once they have that, they put out new tenders to laboratories that will run it for them. So the two contenders would be Lumina, that's mainly the ones that we use, and Affymatrix, that's the manufacturers of these SNP chips. So that's now currently on tender. They've basically asked us to also send them the mutations we need. So if we in future work together, mutations meaning those markers that we deem to be very important, such as the myostatin markers, the pulpness markers, the meat tenderness markers, and so forth. So that to us is very, very important. And then they're very interested in what we call the call rate and whether these SNP panels actually work on other animals, such as the boeran, which is an indigenous African animal that's Bos indicus, the only Bos indicus on the continent, and they would like to see whether their SNP panel works well on indicus breeds, because then we can also basically use that SNP panel in future, and obviously we would like to do it cheaper for the farmers in South Africa. So I think this is a very important collaboration that we have been keeping up for many years, and ICAR 2023 gave us a very good opportunity to negotiate again with the Irish and see how we can work together in future to the benefit of all the breeders in South Africa. Bobbie, I don't know if you, before I go over to Interbeef, that you possibly have to say something about ICBF and the discussions we had.
No, I think you cover everything. It is just important to have international collaborators that is world leaders in certain fields. And with genomic testing, just because of the numbers that ICBF have done over the last couple of years, they are one of the leaders in genomic selection and also in building SNP chip arrays. So and the collaboration that we have established with them is of great help in terms of going forward in South Africa and within Isa Stadboek.
Okay, then the next one, 0.6 years Interbeef. ICAR basically has subcommittees such as Interbull and the Animal Identification Subcommittee, but they also have working groups. And one of the important working groups that we have been working together has been Interbeef. I'm a member of the technical committee of Interbeef. I used to be chairman of the beef working group before it merged with Interbeef. And Interbeef strives to do international genetic evaluation of beef cattle. And that's where the name derived from. Now, the problem with us is affordability. If we take part in Interbeef, it will probably cost us 100,000 Rand a year per breed to get international genetic evaluations for that specific breed. And it's just the affordability is a problem, but it's important for us to be part of Interbeef in future, because then we keep abreast of the latest scientific developments and what the world is doing and how to go forth with that. So at the ICAR 2023 meeting of Interbeef, Bobbie and I both joined the meeting, and they asked Bobbie to also join them. They have working groups within Interbeef to be part of their variance component working group. Now, this is quite significant, because he then becomes part of an international team working on variance components. And variant components is things like heritabilities and genetic correlations amongst traits in beef cattle. And it also gives us access from Stadboek's perspective to not just the experts working in this field, but also the software that they use. So I think this is also significant because then you don't have to pay for the software, and you are part of an international team working on what the latest things are. So I don't know, Bobbie, if you have any comments on that part, but I'm looking forward to the outcome of this collaboration in future as well.
Yeah, we already had our first meeting again from that time via Zoom, and it is very helpful. And it's also when a country has some problems with the estimation of own variance components, with models and with software, then it is opportunity to collaborate, and you have a international team that assists when you have some difficulties to overcome.
Okay, the next one then, and that's a very old friend of mine. She's not so old, but I mean, we've been we known each other for many years. Is Clara Diaz. Clara Diaz is the research leader at INIA. INIA is the Spanish group working on animal breeding and genetics. And then a younger colleague, Christina Penensis. We had a lot of talks with them and collaboration in future. One of let me just mute that. One of the breeds in Spain, that's one of the breeds that I have been involved with in 2020, is the Avilena Negra Iberica cattle, and those are black cattle. They look similar to Drakensbergers, the local breed. I don't say they're exactly the same, and we will be getting some genotypes from them. And to make a comparison with the genetic distance between that breed and the Drakensberger. And I think that's a very interesting collaboration. When I was a student, I was told that there's some roots of the Drakensberger from Europe. I would say a lot, and maybe we can establish that as well. And then a very important part also is that they have a system where it's not just about breeding, but it's also about the value chain. So they have their own, and I'll show pictures later, they have their own abattoir, and they also have crosses, mainly Chevrolet and Limousine crosses of this breed, and they put them through the feedlot. They do all sorts of things on them, and they also have the carcass values, but they also have the genotypes of those crosses. So I think this could be very interesting in future if we get hold of that and see how that differs from our Chevrolet. We don't have limousines. The limousines are not recording with that book, but and where we can basically assist them in future. Bobbie, with the help of Professor Donna Berry in Ireland, has developed so-called breed keys that enable Statboek currently to tell when you have a genotype of an animal, how pure that animal is and what the breed fractions are based on the genomic evaluation of those animals. It's mainly in cattle still, but obviously we will build it in other species in future. And I think we basically agreed with the Spanish group that we will assist them to also collaborate in that regards to enable them to use this technology for themselves in Spain. And then they also asked what the possibility is for Christina to visit us at Statboek sometime in future for a 2-week visit. And then the president of this breeder society also wants to visit. He wants to familiarize himself with what we do and how Statboek operates, and then he's also a keen hunter. So I think, well, he must be very quick if he wants to do it this winter. But that's just something that I think will be very interesting. Working with the Spanish in certain terms, they are also ahead in the world, especially on the mathematical side, Bayesian theory and so forth. But I think we're well ahead of them in terms of the recording practices and the application of breeding values amongst our breeders. So they can learn a lot from us, but we can also learn a lot from them. Bobbie, I don't know what your experience was with talking to Clara and the group, but I think this is also a little bit, you've known Clara for a while as well from Interpool, but I think this can be very valuable for us in future.
Yes, of course. It is, and we are currently busy to exchange genotypes from that breed of them.
Okay. Then our old friend, Professor Dr Berry from Ireland, he's from Tagas in Ireland, but is apparently he's moved up a little bit in ranks in terms of his promotion. He's possibly one of the most cited scientists, animal geneticists in the world. A very prolific writer of scientific papers and one of the top scientists in the world. At the recent World Genetics Conference for Animal Production, he was one of the top 3 scientists in the world that was invited to address the top geneticists in the world. So Donna has been to South Africa a few times. We would like to get him back maybe in November this year to South Africa. Hopefully he will be able to come. And then one of our colleagues, Jason, has been working on the scrapie markers in Merino, and we have received his interpretation of what's on the genome for scrapie resistance in sheep. This is very important globally in terms of health of small stock and sheep, and so we're currently evaluating our own findings with that of Donna in scrapie of sheep. I don't know if Jason is on. Jason, I haven't checked whether Jason is on, but Jason has been working. He's one of our team, has been working on scrapie, and he's basically received the code from Donna to check whether they get to the same answers. Okay, then Andre Egan. Andre Egan is from France. He works for Illumina, one of the manufacturers of the SNP chips. We obviously always strengthen ties with Andre. He's been to South Africa a few times. Currently, we are possibly on the brink of extending the beef genomics program in South Africa, so-called BGP2. We have finished BGP1 that enabled Stadbook to roll out genomic breeding values for at least 3 breeds at the time. And then so we have spoken a lot to Andre about the whole thing about royalties to be paid on some of the markers, and also the actions needed and that basically then ties in with the next item here, item 10, ISAC. That's the International Society for Animal Genetics. That's taking place in Cape Town next week. I will be attending that as well. And many of the international geneticists that we've met in Spain will be attending ISAC 2023, including Andre. So I think that gives us a very good opportunity to plan for BGP2. I was also then asked to be a session co-chair at ISAC 2023. That I think that will enable us to also interact with these are more theoretical geneticists, but very important that we also keep our finger on the pulse as far as that is concerned. The next one is this is a group I think very important that we started negotiations with the German Holstein Federation, and they have a lot of genotypes, international bull genotypes, and we are at very early phase of negotiating the possibility of obtaining some of the international bulls genotypes from the Germans. They're basically using the same bulls globally that our breeders use. So that I think the fact that we could start negotiations with them could really assist us to improve the quality of our genetic evaluations or predictions for Holsteins or black and white cattle in South Africa in future. So that's still early days, but obviously there are possibilities in that regard. Okay, then The next one is all about real-time ultrasound. That was a very interesting talks we had. It seems as if a lot of European countries and other countries are not at the same level we are currently with the real-time ultrasound on live animals for carcass traits and evaluations. And so we've, in our discussions with some of the German breeds, they intend to talk to us about our techniques in real-time ultrasound scanning, and that we also share our guidelines with them. And then we have in Stadtboek have developed a software group, IT group has developed software that can read the images that comes from these real-time ultrasound scanners. And it opens up the possibilities that some of the European countries can send their images to us for interpretation, especially for intramuscular fat and also muscle, the squares on the muscle, the longissimus dorsi muscle. So I think this could mean business for us, and obviously if we can do business like that, then we can make it easier for our own users, or that you pay less for the services at Stadtboek. Then the next discussion with Dr. Matthew Schaefer. He's from DataGene in Australia. They are basically doing the genetic evaluation of the dairy cattle in Australia. They're situated in Melbourne, in Australia. I've known Matthew for quite a few years. He's also serving on Interbull, the International Genetic Evaluation Service from ICAR, and he's basically representing Africa, Oceania, and Asia on Interbull, and that means that he also represents us. And so obviously we had discussions, and then he actually shares some confidential information with us about a group in South Africa who wants to use DataGene for their blood evaluations, which obviously is against the rules of Interbull. And I think this type of interaction just shows you the importance of us attending and knowing what's happening with groups in your own country that goes against the grain in terms of the rules of Interbull. Then a very interesting thing that's now on the order is the whole issue about genetic values of animals for resilience. So resilience basically is the ability of animals to withstand or to endure environmental extremes and to still perform well. So there's a renewed effort in terms of research and development to get breeding values of animals for resilience. And so there was a plenary session at ICAR 2023 on the resilience. What is the definition of resilience, and how can we adapt our breeding objectives in future to select animals that will be more resilient, especially with the possibility of global climatic change on Earth, and how would animals really cope with that? So this is then the ability of farm animals or production animals to endure these extremes and to still perform irrespective of these extremes taking place. And there's also a renewed focus on immediate profitability versus long-term profitability in livestock or production animals. So I think this is opening up a new possibilities or new possibilities in terms of research and development, and also for us at Stadtboek to think about the possibility of looking at animals in terms of their resilience, and also work out breeding values for the traits that underpin resilience and to combine that into a so-called resilience value in future. And that's not just beef cattle, but it can be dairy cattle, it can be small stock, wool sheep, or whatever the case might be. So I think for youngsters doing a postgrad or other research projects, that could be a big possibility. Bobbie, I've said a lot. I don't know if you have anything on so far on what I've said. We have jointly developed this, but I might have missed something on the way.
No, I think you have covered everything, and the resilience traits are unavoidable in future with the climate change that is imminent, and that is something to really proceed with it going forward.
Okay, then a very interesting thing is the whole thing about data ownership and the exchange of data. Nowadays, with the technological advantages, you have automated data capturing or recording, measurements. Machines do that. We are now in an era of Internet of Things. For example, more than 30% of the milk produced in some countries in Europe are from robot milking of the cows, and those robots collect a lot of data on the cows, and then the manufacturers of those milking robots would then present the owners with management information and other information, and they sometimes are very reluctant to exchange that data. Even though the owner pays for it, they are very reluctant to exchange that data to a centralized database and so forth. So I think this will become more and more important for us at Stadboek also, to be very sure where we collect data from the owners. You do your weighings on the farm, you do milk recording, you pay for it. Who owns the data? Is it collectively owned? Are we allowed to use it? Are we allowed to give it to a third party to do research and development that will then enable you to use the products from that? I think this will become a very important aspect in future, and it's a difference between the right to use data and whether you own the data, and you can have co-ownership of the data as well. So I think we possibly need, from Stadboek's perspective, need to think about the possibility to go into certain agreements with those breeders and farmers that we deal with, to know exactly where we are and also where the farmers are in terms of ownership. Collective ownership is very important, because if you are on your own, you cannot benchmark and you cannot test your own herd against the other breeders. So you have to share data to enable you to do that, and that basically helps you as well. So I think this in future will become a bigger and bigger issue. We know globally with Google and Microsoft and others, data ownership is a very important aspect of that as well. Then one of the most exciting developments currently is the mid-infrared spectrum usage in milk analysis. Currently, we use near-infrared for butterfat, protein, somatic cell counts, and milk urea nitrogen. That's a services everybody renders globally. But now they found out that if you change or to mid-infrared spectrum of wavelength, and you use that in milk recording, you can find out a lot more about the cow. So there's a big focus globally on mid-infrared analysis of milk. And the most important part is that you can pick up the metabolic status of the cow. That means that you can see whether she has a tendency for ketosis, or so forth, or one of the metabolic conditions, even the possibilities that you can pick up efficiency of utilizing pastures, for example. So I think we're on a brink of big developments in terms of using that little milk sample, that few milliliters of milk sample, to get a lot of new information. So hopefully, if I talk to my colleagues, this can be a renewed interest in milk recording. Nothing can happen without recording. You cannot just use something like genomics to do these predictions. You need the actual milk sample to enable you to get these things, and that can be early detections of diseases, early detections of those animals that are not well suited or adapted to your production system. So I think this is going to open up a new possibilities for milk recording in the future. And what assisted in this development is the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to enable users of the mid-infrared spectrum to use machine learning to get to answers that we never got to in the past. So I think this is a very, very important new development, and we need to keep abreast of that. And we've already started at Stadbook to see how we can talk to the milk recording labs to get that data from them, and to then latch on to what is happening internationally, so that we can also in future possibly develop systems that can assist the milk producers in South Africa. Okay, then I've mentioned Interbool. This is just some of the services that Interbool as a subcommittee of ICAR renders. I'm not going to dwell too long on this. We should actually ask Bernice. She's also on the meeting. She wasn't with us at the ICAR meetings, but she's very familiar with this, and we take part in MACE, the multiple across country genetic evaluations, and also in GMACE for Holstein. They also render service to the brown Swiss, and for Holsteins of smaller populations called intergenomics. And then I've mentioned Interbeef. Currently they do that for 5 breeds. I have mentioned that the cost is maybe the limiting factor for us. And then they do all sorts of other things as well, where they assist you in data exchange, also exchange of parentage SNPs, which means that if an international, let's say Holstein bull is being used in your country, you can get the 200 ISAC and or the 354 ISAC discovery SNPs, and it enables you to check whether those calves being born are actually from that sire internationally. And also in future, we will possibly look at the so-called GDE, where we can have full genomic exchange between us and other countries. And then also, and I think Bernice also take part in this, well, I know the validations of your local genetic evaluation. So if you are a dairy breeder and you make use of the services of Stadbook, and you want to be sure whether our genetic evaluations actually comply with international standards, yes, it does, because Bernice has to go through apply these tests on what she does, and that is then validated against that. Bernice, if you're on, I don't know if you want to give maybe some insight in this. You're welcome to.
Japie, no, it's just very hard work to do that. We have to participate every 2 years for each breed in the test runs, which is usually in September or in February. So it's quite a lot of work to get everything ready to participate.
Okay, so maybe while you're on, Bernice, what do you think about these people just plucking cow hairs and sending it to the USA and then publish those values in South Africa and say this is a good cow because she's got a good value in the US?
You really want me to say anything on this platform about that?
Okay, that's just tongue in cheek. I've mentioned the fact that taking part in the Interbull activities enable you to publish in your own country any international animal, dairy animal, on the basis of the South African genetic evaluation. So it enables the local dairy producers to compare international animals with the genetic values of their own cows, and that's very important because you're producing the milk here locally, and you're being paid locally, and your expenses are local. So it doesn't make any sense to use any other country's genetic base when you want to compare your own animals, and I think this our participation in Interbull enables us to be able to do just that, like any other country in the world. The top countries in the world will never ever publish different countries' genetic values than their own. The US will not do it, Canada won't do it, the Germans won't do it, the Netherlands won't do it, and we will certainly not do it in South Africa as well. So for those who are distributing different breeding values than ours, that's not the right way. That's not the scientific way to do it. Okay, then I've mentioned a little bit about resilience. The world is talking about climate change and mitigating strategies for climate change. And this is very interesting. A lot of countries have huge projects on CH4 emissions from ruminants. And obviously it's the rich countries, they have equipment, sniffer or whatever equipment, which they can actually measure the impact of ruminants on climatic change and the emission of these gases. They have also already started working on genetic variances amongst cattle, for example, in the emission of that. So, and there's actually a heritability. See, you can see CH4, the heritability is 23% if you look at the top right one, and also the correlation with milk and fat and protein production. So it means that it will be possible in future to select animals that will have a lower impact on climatic change in the world. And so there are already what they call a sustainability index. The Australians are working on that. And I have mentioned the Irish, they genotype 340,000 beef cattle per year as part of this program. So they measure the methane emissions, and they also basically work out efficiency indices like the Canadians as well. And you can also see that they pick up as much as a 16% variation in methane emissions amongst dairy cows at the same production level. So I think there's room for selection, and just give scientists half a chance that they will find ways and means how to select animals. And I have mentioned the mid-infrared measurements, and there's also the possibilities, if you can do that about 120 to 185 days in milk, it's possible then also to use the mid-infrared to record the methane emissions in dairy cattle. Bobbie, I don't know what your feeling was about this. This was initially I was very reluctant to attend these sessions, because we always say no, you know, cars and planes and that is worse for the world. But I think there's possibilities even for ruminant selection in this. I don't know if you want to say something on that.
I think a selection against this will be imminent in the future, even if it is indirect selection, where you do because it will be an expensive trait to measure. So I think in the future we will select indirectly against methane emissions in the future.
Okay. Then a company we started working together with from Stadboek perspective is IDEX. IDEX is a company that is really well advanced in science, and IDEX Stadboek is now working together with IDEX as a supplier of pregnancy tests for ruminants in South Africa, and I attended the session of IDEX. Currently, just on the milking robots, they're doing 32 million pregnancy tests annually on milking robots globally. This IDEX test for pregnancy is 100% sensitivity and 92.2% specificity. The future holds that there will be specific mastitis PCR launch, or it happened at ICAR 2023, where you can get results within 60 minutes. So we're looking forward to the new developments that IDEX has to offer, and to see how we can collaborate with IDEX in the future. And then also the possibilities of picking up more diseases, either through a milk test or a blood test in future. Talia, I don't know, you've been working with IDEX. You haven't been with us to ICAR, but I don't know if you have anything to add to the IDEX thing.
Dr. Japie, no, I don't think I have anything to add. I think we're going to definitely look into the PCR to see how we can. I think that's a game changer in terms of mastitis and health of specifically dairy cattle. The pregnancy test is going so well at the moment. We're doing very well in terms of, especially in small stock, but as well as in cattle. So it works quite well on all ruminants. Yeah, in terms of the diseases, we can also do, like we said, in milk and blood. We can actually just test a whole lot of different diseases at the same time, and I think that makes it quite an effective test. So yeah, excited to see what IDEX is going to bring out further. Thanks.
Good. Okay, thank you, Talia. Okay, then maybe something completely different, and I think it's something we need to look at in future at Stadboek in terms of our documentation, is the so-called wiki pages. I think many of you are familiar with Wikipedia. That's a very, very powerful way where you have different contributors to the same documentation on the web. I don't want to dwell too long on this, but ICAR is moving their documentation over to wiki pages, so the global stuff will be on wiki in future. And like I said, I don't want to talk too much about that, but I think this is also exciting times on the computer front that Stadboek will start using as a possibility in the future. Okay, just to end off with, usually with these international conferences, you end up with some sort of a tour, and you have at the top left, you can see the map of Spain. So that was the little tour we did at the end, and we visited this one of the breeders of this Avelina Negra Iberica cattle. You can see they're black like the Drakensberger. They might not be exactly the same. There's some photos of the carcasses in the abattoir, where they strive to have the whole of the value chain. And there's some of the animals that's similar to our growth test, our phase D test, if you can call it that, where we visited one of the or their testing center. They also finish animals half crosses. I've mentioned Charolais crosses and limousin crosses, and they then slaughter them, and those carcasses you see there would be some of those animals that were slaughtered. This is basically it. I don't know if anybody is welcome. If you have any comments or you want to share your ideas on this, I will ask my colleagues to also just check when somebody wants to say something. But that's basically it, Bobbie. But I'll first just give you a chance if you can just give maybe general observations, or if you want to say something on.
No, I think, thank you, Japie. I think you covered most of it. I think on the end of the day, it is all about collaboration, and also to build up relationships with international colleagues. As you say in the beginning, without this type of engagements, you become stuck on the island. And I think this broadens your networking, and also when you are faced with some challenges, you know where you can find help, and also to keep on in front in terms of international standards, and the way that where the science in animal recording and improvement is going to.
If nothing else, I thank you all and enjoy the rest of the evening, and until we have another session. I want to remind you of the winter school that our colleague Elena is going to present shortly. For those who want to join her on the winter school, I think maybe that's also a good opportunity for those who want to know more about logics itself, and also lab breeding values and so forth. So thanks for joining us, and have a good evening.